Okay, welcome back. All right, we're going to get into our bodies for a minute. I invite you all to just kind of like wiggle. Emote, make noise, move as you feel called. Stand a little bit. Do a wiggle. And when you're ready, you can stay standing. I want you to find a hand on your womb and a hand on your heart. Notice a pulses. And just take 7 deep breaths. And during this process, I invite you to see if you can tune in to the blood moving from your heart down to your kidneys and womb, connecting to all your organs in between. And just notice your body. Notice how it feels. Notice if there's any places that hurt. Notice if there are any places that are feeling stuck. Release through your head. Release from your face. Release from your arms. Release from your chest. From your underarms. From the sides of your body. From your back. From your butt. From your legs. Down through your feet. Just release. All right. Thank you for doing that with me. A little embodiment is always good to help our connections. Okay. This is some of my favorite stuff. I want to honor and acknowledge Chinese medicine as indigenous medicine. The Chinese were never colonized in antiquity. So Chinese medicine has a 3,000 to 5,000 years, different sources say different things, history of a full diagnostic, preventative, curative medicine. I started studying Chinese medicine in 2004 with a mentor as a college student. I started going to Chinese medicine school in 2008 as a new college graduate, and I graduated in Chinese medicine school in 2012. I have a propensity toward Chinese lovers, to be completely honest. My current partner is of Chinese, Roma, Gypsy, Irish, Jewish descent, and he is my son's father. I have some past lives as Chinese human, so there's a lot there for me, and I want to honor the many year-long lineages of Chinese medicine. Now, the reason I say Chinese medicine was never colonized is because, at least not before the Cultural Revolution and Mao days, there was all kinds of stuff that happened there with Chinese medicine that led to the fleeing and the watering down of the mystical, spiritual parts of Chinese medicine. You can research the Cultural Revolution. That was around the same time that there was a connection with America, and Nixon is actually the person who brought Chinese medicine to the United States of America. But there's a book called Wind in the Blood that uses Chinese medicine as a reference to ancient Maya medicine, because in the Americas, when conquest happened, all of our tomes, all of our medicinal knowledge, our history was burned. So they use in this book Chinese medicine as a verifying, if you will, lens for traditional Maya medicine, because there's like some of the ways the body works physiologically is viewed the same. So I'm very grateful to this medicine. When I started Chinese medicine school, so much of my indigenous understanding as a mestiza, as someone raised in ceremony ways, and as someone who has a very strong intuition that comes from a background of hands-on healing, it was just like pew 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 pew, and I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. And I have been a little nerd geek about it ever since. So it is with great reverence and great excitement, also some mourning of being of a broken legacy, and feeling like I needed to use someone else's culture to connect to my own. But there's beauty in that too. That I bring this to you. And when I was preparing to teach this course, I had to go back through all of my old stuff, and my mind was once again blown by just how cool Chinese medicine is and how much sense it makes and how effective it is as a preventative and curative medicine for all ailments, literally. All right. So this is Chinese medicine terminology and physiology of reproduction. And this is sourced from my Southwest Acupuncture OBGYN course reader with an instructor who I admire and value very much, who is also a midwife, Valerie Hobbs, and interpreted by me. So here we go. Bao Gong, the wrapper palace, or our womb. So Bao can be translated as wrapper or like envelope. So it is like the palace of holding, of receiving, of envelopment. It is an extraordinary vessel or organ. So in Chinese medicine, we have 12 regular organs, and I won't name them right now, but every organ is a pair, has a pair. They are yin and yang organs. And the yin organs are considered the holding organs, the ones that store, and the yang organs are considered the ones that move, that have peristalsis. So the womb is an extraordinary organ in that it is both yin and yang. It both holds and stores, and then it contracts and moves. So it's really cool. The womb is like the I keep wanting to say like el mero mero órgano, like the coolest organ. It's like all the organs in one and better. It like makes life, right? The yin or zhang, as it's called, aspect. It stores the monthly essence or our blood, and it stores the fetus. Okay, so those are it's storing things. It stores and grows the fetus in a yin way. In a yang, fu or hollow organ way, it discharges or peristalsis out the monthly menstrual blood and discharges during birth the fetus. So we also call this the place where the essence is treasured and concealed. We'll have a whole talk about essence. Essence is a concept in Chinese medicine of the primordial offering, the substance that we are given upon conception, that then moves into the rest of our life. We'll talk more about that later. So in women, the shui shi, or it's the chamber of blood, and in men, it's the jing shi, or the chamber of essence. Okay, so right here below, you'll see this picture from Frank Netter's book, that in women, you see where the womb is, and that's the same place that the prostate is. Okay, and that's where our things are created. It's a center of creativity. It's the Svadhisthana chakra, if you guys are into yogic terms. It is where our life force comes from. Essence is life force. Okay, the functions of our womb are to move the menstruate, to harmonize gestation, and to birth the child. So we'll talk about the harmonizing gestation later. For this class is a 101 class, right? So We're not going to get into very minute specifics, but for our purposes, we know that the functions of our womb are to move the menstruate, to create the baby, and to harmonize the baby in its creation, and to then eject the baby. All right, and you can look at all these pictures on your own. All right, Bao Mai, the wrapper vessel, could also be called the Chong Mai or the rushing vessel. So this is one of my really huge geek moments while I was researching again for this class. So Bao, once again, is enveloping. Mai, in our understanding, means channel or vessel. So I'm going to take it away and tell a little story. So we also call this the Chong Mai or the rushing vessel, which is a meridian that we use acupuncture needles for to help any kind of menstruation issue, etc. But here's the story. I learned that the first person to translate a Chinese medical text was a Frenchman. And he was a Frenchman who was ejected. I can't remember the word ever. Not ostracized. He was like sent away from France because he did something bad. He was not a linguist. He was not a medicine man. He was a chef who went to China and was just fascinated with Chinese medicine, and took it upon himself to translate the Wang Di Neijing, the inner classics of Chinese medicine, one of the oldest and ancient texts. And he coined the French term méridien or meridian. And I had a teacher once who was so annoyed and angry about that because he made it seem like a meridian was this like woo-woo energy channel thing, right? Actually, the channels run along vessels and nerves. Okay, so yes, the channels have like an energetic component because everything has an energetic component, electrons, protons, etc. running through, right? But they're actually along the pathways of veins and nerves, which is why you have to make sure that you don't puncture veins and nerves if you're an acupuncturist. And also why there's like so much power in bringing your white blood cells to a conglomeration of veins and nerves, like for instance, the brachial plexus, where there's a lot of acupuncture points that connect a lot of different meridians, because this is where there's a crossing point of all different kinds of veins and nerves, of arteries and nerves, etc. Okay? So I just want you guys to know that Chinese medicine is physiological. There's nothing woo-woo, oh, it's only energetic. That's what the complex would want us to believe. That's what they believe because of colonialism. I'm going to keep talking about that. But really, it's scientific AF, okay? All right. So the wrapper vessel connects the womb to the network of vessels surrounding the heart through the pericardium for the purpose of moving heart qi back to the womb. Menstruation is smooth when heart qi and blood flow freely and reach the uterus unobstructed. So in Chinese medicine, there are all kinds of associations with organs. Organs are not just the physiological compartments of organs, they're consciousness. When we talk about an organ, we're not just talking about the tissue that makes up the organ. We're talking about the emotion associated with it. We're talking about the vessels and structures and orifices associated with it. We're talking about the musculature associated with it. The organs are entire concepts that have consciousness. Okay? So the consciousness of the heart is connected to the consciousness of the womb. And their elemental associations are fire and water. And the kidneys are water, but the kidneys exist right here, which is on the other side of the womb, and they're deeply connected, as we'll see in the next little tidbit. Bao Luo, the wrapper network. The network of vessels distributed over the womb that supply and fill the womb with kidney essence. Okay, so the luo are if the mai is the big channel, and in this case, if you look down, The Mai is actually the big veins right here, the artery and the vena cava. Okay, so you can look down here at this anatomical picture and see the very real arterial connection between the heart and the kidneys and the heart and the womb. And the luo are the little capillaries. The luo are the tiny vessels that surround things. So in our bodies, we have the mai and the luo. And the mai are the big ones and the luo are the little ones. Okay? So here we want to talk about kidney essence. Essence is our primordial source of life essence bestowed upon conception and used throughout our lives. According to Chinese medical philosophy, the kidney essence is bestowed to us upon conception from our parents, our mother and our father, our birther and our sperm donor. Okay? It is qualitative and quantitative. So the kidney essence we receive upon conception is not like the essence of anyone else's. It comes from your parents equally, and more so is affected by the essence of your birthing person during their gestation. So things that can affect the quality of kidney essence: alcohol, rape, deep love, conscious conception, the cosmos, the stars during conception, war times, peace times, party times, ceremonies that having. What's coming to mind right now is, like, I think in ancient European culture, they would have these huge orgies, and then a bunch of people would be pregnant, and nobody knew who the father was, and it was supposed that everyone was the father because of the energetic intertwinements. It's also cool because you know that if you use your intention toward conscious conception, you are actually creating a specific vibration within the jing that someone carries. Now, qualitatively, our jing is affected as womb carriers by releasing our menstruate every month and bearing children. That's how we lose our jing. If we are prostate carriers, our jing is affected by ejaculation. Every time you ejaculate, it releases jing. And so clinically, when prostate carriers come in for like a low libido, or what do they call it when they're unable to keep an erection, that has a lot to do with kidney essence and the quantity and quality of kidney essence. Other things that reduce the quantity and quality of kidney essence specifically for prostate carriers are alcohol abuse, drug abuse, smoking, staying up too late, not sleeping well, not participating in restorative practices. And many of those things also affect womb carriers. So the more essence we spend in our lives by work hard, play hard, by having too much sex, by engaging in too much substance abuse, the less we are going to have of jing to offer our children. So this is why, from a Chinese medical physiological point of view, the older we get, the harder it is to bear children, for women especially, or womb carriers, and two, the more life we've lived that affects our jing that we then pass on to our children. So this is why you will see more developmental things in the children of older parents than younger parents. However, none of this is set in stone, right? So many different things can contribute to the jing of a human. And then I want to remind you all of what we learned in the first part, that these children decide who and when to come through. And we are also physiologically affected by the essence of our bearers. Okay. Um, so the pathway of yin essence to the womb via the Bao Mai to the heart and upper body. So the Bao Luo is the pathway of yin essence to the womb via the Bao Mai, or the blood from the heart and the upper body. So basically, menstruation is smooth when heart chi and blood flow freely and reach the uterus unobstructed. So when we have this heart and womb connection, and the blood is literally moving through, and there are all these vessels, and you can see in these pictures all these vessels that are moving and in and around and supposed to be moving, any trauma, emotionally, right? Because the organs are also consciousness. So any shock, any fear, any heartbreak, any heart hardness, um, it says in here, it surrounds the pericardium. It comes through the pericardium. The pericardium is a wrapper around the heart. It is the gatekeeper. So some of us have been hurt and are like, nah, you're not coming in. This is why it might be hard for us to get pregnant by our spouses, but then we have one philandering night and our heart opens and the blood rushes and boom, we're pregnant with someone else's child because we're mad at our spouse or something. These are just things that are coming into my head. My point is, our organ anatomy, our blood, our chi are interconnected with our emotional body, with our trauma body. And when we are storing traumas in our body, they act as stagnation, they act as stuckness, they act as blocks and disjointedness in our Bao Mai, our Bao Luo, that keep us from the smooth flow of blood and chi. According to Chinese medicine, where there is pain, there is no flow. Where there is flow, there is no pain. So we see health as the unobstructed flow of qi and blood. And this is what you need physiologically from a Chinese medical standpoint to conceive and harmonize gestation and birth optimally. Yes, the womb is a juncture. Okay, so this is also interesting. So in Mexica traditional medicine that I've learned from my comadre Panquetzani, the cosmological view of the womb in Mexican traditional medicine is the center of the universe. So it makes sense, right? It's like the plaza. It's like where everything has to check in from to go to. In Chinese medicine, it's between the Bao Mai and Bao Luo. So it's the connector between these big veins and arteries that run up and down between the heart and the kidneys and the womb, between the heart and the kidneys, so between the water and the fire, and between the upper and lower jiaos. Jiao is a word we use, they also translate it as burner, but there's a upper burner, a middle burner, and a lower burner of where the organs are. So pretty much the womb has to be unobstructed by trauma, etc., blockages in any way for our entire body to run smoothly. And once again, menstruation and the ability to conceive are dependent on abundance of blood sent from the heart to womb through the Bao Mai. So if our heart is closed, our womb's not going to be able to flow blood. There is a deep connection between the joy and flow of our heart space and the ability of our blood to fully be the flow of our blood to be optimal. So oftentimes if people come to me in clinic and they're having menstrual issues, I'll ask questions about their relationship life. I'll ask questions about their childhood, etc., right? Because we need to clear the emotional stuff in order to honor the optimal physiological presentation of the womb space. And then sufficient kidney essence supplied by Bao Luo. So we also have to have kidney essence. Okay, so once again, our kidney essence is depleted by menstruation and childbearing, but also lifestyle situations like, taking pharmaceutical medications, taking drugs, anything that puts your kidneys and liver through a lot of stress, because the liver is highly associated with how the blood moves in the body. We can talk about that at a different time when I do a 5-element course. And the kidney essence is supported by what you eat, by how you sleep, by tonifying herbal practices, like making sure you drink a tonic tea, by sleeping enough. These restorative practices are helping us not spend excess reserves. So I like to think of the kidney essence as the reservoir of life juice, if you will. And then what we eat and drink adds to the circulation of the rivers so that we don't have to pull from the reservoir. Okay. Yeah, and there's a lot that we could talk about in that. But for the purposes of this class, know that so much of our life essence, our life reserves, and how it affects our ability to conceive and gestate and birth has to do with our lifestyle choices and the people choices, so that our emotional bodies are well and our blood body is flowing. Yeah. So I gave you guys some pictures here that you can see very clearly in the pregnancy anatomy picture, that bowel wall, like how those veins and arteries are just around the womb space. I also wanted to point out that in this book, written by and illustrated by an MD who is a white man, there is a lot of clamping pictures of the uterus, and that just makes me uncomfortable and feels kind of unnecessary and feels like a flex, like a weird power move. And maybe he's just, drawing his dissection. But I don't know. There's a good amount of clamps on uteruses in this text. I also want you to see in the pregnancy picture the innervation, how many nerves are connected to all of this. Okay. So now vital substances. Qi. Qi is the commander of the blood. Qi is the child of the blood. All right, so I feel like these are pretty straightforward, but I'll go over them. The qi is really just oxygen. I've had many teachers be like, when people are talking about qi is the energy, and it is energy. The character of qi is made of the radicals for steam and rice. So that is, the qi is made of what you eat and what you breathe. It's made up of the movement of your food and your water and your oxygen. So some teachers are like, your qi is just oxygen. So oxygenated blood is healthy blood, right? The qi is the commander of the blood, or the qi is the child of the blood. Any of us who have kids know that our kids rule, and we follow. So in order for your blood to flow, you have to have enough qi, enough oxygen, yang energy for your blood to flow. It pushes it forward, or pulls it forward, depending on how you look at it. Okay, so our lungs and our ability to is really powerful when it comes to our menstruation and gestational capabilities. This is by a comadre Mosaic Guy. It says, breath is bay. Inhale, exhale. Breath is bay, y'all. Weak qi will not engender blood. So if we don't breathe enough, if we're not having enough qi, enough good food, etc., we can't make the blood. Qi deficiency leads to blood deficiency. We'll talk more about blood deficiency as this class goes on. But if you're not breathing enough, if you don't have enough qi, your blood can't build itself. Okay? Qi deficiency won't hold the blood. So one of our diagnoses in Chinese medicine is qi not holding the blood. So your qi is kind of like strength. It's like what the force behind everything is. And one of its duties is to hold the blood in the vessels. So if we don't have enough qi, our blood might seep out of us. So I've seen patients who come in and they have really heavy menstrual cycles and are tired all the time, especially after eating. That is qi not holding the blood. So, and there are other reasons for that too. This isn't a Chinese medicine pathology class. Okay, qi stagnation leads to blood stagnation. So if our qi isn't moving, if we're not breathing enough, if we have shock or we have emotional holding, our blood's not going to be able to move. And blood stagnation looks like clots. It looks like dark purple blood. It looks like very, very painful cramping upon menstruation. Okay, and a lot of this has to do with our emotional bodies, specifically post-colonial for womb carriers. Okay, blood. Blood is the mother of qi. Okay, so blood is the mother. Blood holds. Blood is the yin force that gives the space for qi to move. Okay, so the way we make blood is by eating good foods, predominantly. Okay, and making sure that we're drinking enough water. Blood is yin. Yin is blood, and they have some differences, but for the purposes of this class, they are very closely connected. In blood deficiency, qi loses its root. So one of the things we call when there's not enough blood, it cannot anchor the qi. So I invite you to imagine a very frail human who doesn't drink enough water, doesn't eat enough food, maybe smokes a lot, and is super skinny and gaunt and dry. And how every once in a while they just like go off the rocker. They're like, ah, at you. That's because they are yang, which is a greater, hotter, faster manifestation of qi. That's kind of pathological. Once again, Chinese medicine is really huge. Don't take anything I say for law. This is very specific to these concepts. When there's someone like that, they don't have enough blood. They might be pale, okay? And if there's not enough blood to anchor the qi, to provide that yin counterpoint that has weight, the qi flies flippantly, okay? So flushes up and out erratically and open to internal wind. Wind, like I mentioned before, wind in the blood. Wind is a pathological factor in Chinese medicine that some of the things attributed to it are stroke and tremors or tics. Like when you're like, it's because you don't have enough blood in your body and like air gets in your blood vessels. And that causes all different kinds of things. Okay, blood stasis leads to qi stasis. So just as if there's not enough qi and the blood can't move, vice versa, if there's not enough blood to move or the blood isn't moving, the qi can't move. And they have different symptoms but are closely related. And then blood deficiency leads to qi and yang desertion. So if you imagine a little further up, there's that qi loses its root, and then there's this flushing up and erratic. There, you're going to spend all of your qi and yang energy too, and then just collapse. Very dangerous. That's like extreme, okay? Fluids, speaking of which. Blood and fluids have a common source. So once again, that yin, you have to make sure we're drinking enough water, we're eating enough blood-building foods with healthy fluids like berries, tomatoes, etc. Fluids loss damage leads to blood deficiency. So lost and damaged fluids happen so much in birth. All right, so a lot of our postpartum experiences have to do with improper postpartum care, which we'll talk about later, but specifically related to the fluids and blood lost during birth. Replete or full excessive fluids can lead to stagnation plus phlegm. So this is, we see mostly because of heavy foods in our standard American diet, but if you have an excess amount of heavy, sticky, wet things, then your blood will kind of bog like a swamp. And then that could also lead to the stagnation of blood and qi. Okay. Essence and blood share the same source. So earlier, releasing ejaculate, releasing blood will deplete the essence. If qi and blood are weak, essence declines. So this goes to show if we're not moving enough to create the oxygen flow in our body, if we're not eating blood building foods, healthy vegetables with lots of dense nutrients, etc., and drinking teas, minerals, vegetables, then we are not giving ourselves enough resources to keep the rivers flowing, so we're taking from our reserves. Our essence declines. And then blood deficiency leads to essence insufficiency. So we need to be nourished. We must be well nourished, and that's harder and harder to do in this society. We are leading back to it now, but I want to take us once again back to our indigenous ancestral understanding. Our ancestors were eating foods appropriate to their region, appropriate to their season, appropriate to their ancestry, their bloodlines, that is nourishing, that pretty much comes directly from the earth and isn't processed in a lab 3, 5, 10 months, a year before you eat it. The chi of food matters. And when I say chi of food, I mean the energy surrounding it. If you pick it right out of the earth and put it in your mouth, it has the most chi. Okay, so there's so much to talk about when we're talking about physiology, and specifically in this indigenous paradigm brought to us by Chinese medicine, the physiology of how our food and our breath are deeply connected to the way our blood moves and the air moves in our body, the oxygen moves in our body. And that is deeply connected to our pregnancy and birth outcomes. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for being here for this first week of our Birthing Basics course. Once again, please take your time with your reflection questions. I look forward to any questions you have on our upcoming Zoom gathering. The link will be sent out soon. And I am so excited to walk this path with you, to learn and unlearn with you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being here, and have a beautiful day.